Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point. AFR Doc Brian Fisher is my name. We're going to get to the Rand Paul clips in just a second. Let's grab a couple of phone calls first. Let's go to Ricky in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Red Stick, Louisiana. Ricky, welcome. What's on your mind?
Yes, sir. I just want to comment real quickly. Almost everybody that has a half a brain knows that Obama's a communist and a Muslim. I mean, his mother was a communist, his father was a Muslim, traded a child in the ways to go. They want the part when they're old. And the whole reason that he wants to take away the Second Amendment is that he can't take away Americans' guns unless he takes away the Second Amendment. But just remember, the Second Amendment protects the Constitution and all the rest of the amendments. If he takes away the Second Amendment, he will take away the Constitution and the rest of them and make us a communist state like China, North Korea, or Russia. Or so he has to take away our guns to take away the Second Amendment, which guards and protects all the other amendments and the Constitution. If he's successful in taking away the Second Amendment, then he could take over the United States. That's all I wanted to say.
All right, Ricky, that's very good. And I read the Thomas Jefferson quote, and Ricky's comment's good, and it just reminds me of what Thomas Jefferson said. The strongest reason for people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against tyranny in government. So when government wants to exercise a tyrannical control over its citizens, the first thing it has to do, this is Ricky's point, first thing it has to do is disarm them, take away their ammo, take away their guns. That's what really set off the Revolutionary War, is when the Crown went to disarm the citizens of Concord and Lexington. All right, that's a good call, Ricky. Thank you for that. Let's go to Tim, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Tim, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian. I was just going to let you know, yesterday I received a letter from Senator Roger Wicker's office. I had sent from an FRC request an email a few days ago, to ask them not to support anything. And received that letter yesterday, and Roger Wicker's office had his rubber stamp signature on it, said that he assured that they would in no way support any of the gun control. I guess they meant no way except for this one.
Huh. Wow. So he was another senator that said, look, there's no way, his office said, look, there's no way he's going to support anything that would advance gun control, and then goes out today and votes for it. So.
Yeah, that's what his letter said, but I guess there was no way except for this one, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. All right, Tim. Appreciate that. Let's go to Chris. Chris in Batesville, Mississippi. Chris, welcome to Focal Point with Brian Fisher. What's on your mind?
Hey, Brian, how you doing, man?
Good.
Look, I called Senator Wicker, talked to his secretary.
Yes.
And she tried to explain to me, because I told her I was upset about him voting to let this thing continue to go on into debate and everything.
Yeah.
And she said this. She said that if they would have voted against it, it would have been like a filibuster, and that if then in about 2 or 3 days, Harry Reid would be able to bring it up again, and then they would only be able to put in 2 amendments because they'd already used their filibuster. And she said, but if they wait till it goes before the vote, they may can kill it if they get all the 60 votes or whatever, or if they see they're not going to have enough votes, I guess then they can put in a filibuster. But she said that it's kind of like, the way she explained to me, she said if you was a card player, you wouldn't put your best cards out first. That's what she told me, literally. She said this is the kind of, she tried to explain her logic to me, and but that's what she said, Brian. She said that.
Well, that just sounds to me, that sounds a little too clever by half, and that's the first I've heard anything like that. I'm not saying it's not true, but that's the first I've heard anything. If you can't get cloture, that sucker is dead. If you can't get to 60 votes, it doesn't get resurrected in 2 or 3 days. It just goes away. It's buried. It's done. It's toast. I mean, that's what I understand about the process. So she's talking about something I have never heard of before.
Yeah, because that's what I told her. I said, well, we, thought that if you went on and voted against it, then it would have been over. But she said, no, Harry Reid could bring it back up in about 3 days, and then they'd only be able to put in 2 amendments. But she said if they wait, they can put in as many amendments as they want. So,
all right, okay. Well, I appreciate that. We'll have to see. I'll check and see if there's any substantiation for that point of view. All right, listen, I appreciate that, Chris. Thanks for weighing in. Let's grab Jim, Marion County, Alabama. Jim, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Great to talk to you, Brian.
Thank you.
This situation with this attack on our Second Amendment, you had a gentleman to call earlier, why are people not standing up and wanting to know how to stand up to show this government that we're against this? Well, they're just doing all this, just little nips and little bites, kind of like the thing up in New York. I would have already have figured that somebody would have jumped out and made a stood up and made a big deal about them trying to come and get our rights. But I talk to people all the time about this Second Amendment thing, about them coming to get their guns here in Alabama, and they just act nonchalant, like, these veterans, like it's not going to happen. But these veterans, they got money coming to them from the government, and they're afraid to mess that up. If they raise up all these people who's getting money from the government, they'll mess up their check. And these people that's got these homes and things, they got to make a payday every day to keep these big fancy homes. And it's my opinion that left is right, and right is left, and up is down, and down is up, and they're going to do this without firing a shot.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate the call. Thank you for that. And I got a story from Terry Jeffrey today. I kind of lost it. I had it over here somewhere. But Terry Jeffrey, who's a very good writer, very perceptive, saying that now for the first time in history, and this goes back to our last caller's point about how dependent people are on the government. And why don't let's grab clip number 8, Rob, if we can, that student at Howard University. And we'll also want to grab, back that up with the Melissa Perry clip on number 12 on rights. But what Terry Jeffrey made the point, and I don't know where that story is, I got to find it, but he said for the first time, the federal government is now spending more per household than the median household income. So the federal government is now spending more on every household than that household even has income. Well, obviously, there's no way that's sustainable. I mean, it's just simply not sustainable. That's virtually 100% taxation rate, because the money has to come from households. So that's the point that we're at. So you can see, I mean, it illustrates just how dependent people are now on government handouts and government services. Now, as I mentioned, Rand Paul spoke at Howard University yesterday. This is clip number 8. Rand Paul speaking at Howard University yesterday. And Rand Paul's a libertarian, and that's where my issues are with him on social issues. He's not strong as strong as I believe he needs to be on social issues, because libertarians are, hey, whatever floats your boat. But Rand Paul is very clearly a guy that is for smaller government, because he knows that getting government out of the way is the key to releasing the potential of the American people, releasing the potential of the American entrepreneur, releasing the potential of the American worker. This is where jobs come from. Every regulation is like a weight that you throw in the backpack of somebody who's trying to make their way forward in the American economy. The more bricks you throw in there, the slower they move until they finally bog down and they can't move at all. So Rand Paul is very clearly, he's passionate about this. He believes it. He means it. Smaller government, less regulations, lower taxes. Now this, and he says to Howard University, this is what I want for you, because this is how you can realize your potential. Here's the student in the question and answer session. Here's his response to Rand Paul appealing to him and his instinct for self-reliance and self-support. Here's what he had to say.
Good afternoon, Senator. My name is Keenan Glover. I'm an Administration of Justice major from Rochester, New York.
Okay.
A freshman as well. You say you want to provide a government that leaves us alone. Quite frankly, I don't want that. I want a government that is going to help me. I want a government that will help me fund my college education. I want a government that won't define me by my FAFSA nor by my family's income. I'm a dollar sign with a heartbeat in this nation. This society is mirrored image of Capitol Hill. Do you, Senator Rand Paul, have a formulated solution to come up with new American values so that the citizens of this nation have a worth of more than dead presidents and Ben Franklin?
So that's a guy
I think what I would say when we go back to that I want a government that leaves you alone, The main reason I say that, and we can disagree, but probably we're going to end up disagreeing. But what I would say is that the reason I say leaves me alone is the gentleman just stood up and people gave him a hard time, and probably most people here are not followers of Louis Farrakhan. But in America, you can live and be a follower of Louis Farrakhan if we leave you alone, and we ought to.
So Rand Paul, the guy says, look, I don't want a government like you're talking about. And this is the cultural divide that we are up against, ladies and gentlemen. We are up against people who love liberty and love freedom, do not want bigger government. We want smaller government. We want government restricted to its God-ordained functions, which is the administration of justice, period. That's it. Law enforcement, judicial system, penal system, need all those things. We need a military to protect our national defense. That is the proper role of government. And then beyond that, whatever else, we've given the government the latitude to do, Article 1, Section 8. That's it. That's what we want. Government restricted to its constitutional functions. But that's not what liberals and progressives want. Now, here is Melissa Harris Perry. She's the one that said, hey, your kids do not belong to you as parents. They belong to the government. Now, here's her latest ad. Again, this is very deliberate. This is an ad. This is not off the cuff. This is not ad lib. This is not spontaneous. This is deliberate. This is scripted. And remember, if it makes a demand on somebody else's wallet, it cannot be a right. It's not a right if it makes a demand on somebody else's liberty, somebody else's property, somebody else's pocketbook. Let's listen.
Americans will always want some level of inequality because it's a representation of meritocracy. People who work hard and sacrifice and save their money and make major contributions, we think that they should earn a little more and they should have more resources, and that's fine. But we also, however, have to have a floor under which nobody falls. And if you're below that, especially if you're a child and you're below that, we are not going to accept that. You do have the right to health care and to education and to decent housing and to quality food at all times.
So that's MSNBC. She's the same one that said, hey, your kids don't belong to you. They belong to the community. It can't be a right if it makes a demand on somebody else's wallet. So she says you've got a right to health care. Well, if you've got a right to health care, that means you've got a right to have somebody else pay for it if you can't. That's not a right. That's a demand. It's a good. It's a service, but it's no way it's an unalienable right. Same with decent housing. Somebody's got to pay for it. Focal Point AFR Talk.